Hello and welcome back. My name is Jason Linett. I'm a board-certified hypnotist, I'm an instructor, I'm the director here at Virginia Hypnosis, and you're joining us here for our fourth video in the National Guild of Hypnotists NGH Hypnotism Success series. So far in this series, I've introduced a number of specific concepts. Specifically, first of all, rethinking hypnosis. How do we start to redefine our definitions of hypnosis, as well as how we talk about it to our clients, as well as in our communities? Also, we've introduced the theme of lead generation marketing. The concept of simply asking your clients to raise their hands and say, "I'm interested," and then spending our specific time marketing to those individual clients. In last month's video, Automation 101, talking about how do we begin to automate our marketing streams. Set it and forget it. How do we begin to take our methods and set them on an autopilot so our business is running even while they're not there? So to revisit the themes back to the first video, however, that's one of the big topics, that's one of the big focuses of this month's video. The topic this month is Go Public. Networking and live talks. So far we've spent some time specifically in the last two videos talking about how do you begin to make use of the internet? How do you begin to make use of automated techniques to really begin to build your business? In this month's video, well, for those of you who perhaps are not as tech savvy as others may be, again, it's a self-limiting belief, everybody can be taught. But again, for those people who are perhaps not as tech savvy, I know you're going to find a lot of massive value in this month's video, specifically because these two concepts that I'm going to be spending time talking about here this month, well, these are the two concepts that really got my business up and running in the early days just as fast as I possibly could. So again, the topic this month, Go Public, networking and live talks. How do we take the information that we know about hypnosis out into our public communities? How do we begin to position ourselves as that obvious expert in our local area? How do we begin to infiltrate our local business community in a wonderful way in which people begin to know exactly who we are, what we do, and what our services that we can provide? If you've been paying attention with anything within the National Guild of Hypnotists in the last several years, the big story is this theme that we're all putting out there right now. We're working with normal everyday people with normal everyday problems using individual hypnotic techniques. So the concept is, the mission statement here, the goal of all this, is to let that trip to the consulting hypnotist be just as common to the trip of the family doctor, the chiropractor, the dentist, these normal everyday things that we all tend to do from time to time. So for hypnosis to really begin to advance, first of all, I'd recommend, if you have not yet watched the previous videos, go back to this channel on YouTube and look at those individual videos. You can find them all by loading this specific website, hypnotismsuccess.com. You're going to find all the details, all the previous videos, and teleseminars. They're repeated as well. But we keep the numbering simple on these. hypnotismsuccess.com/01, that's the first video, 02, 03, you're with me so far, and if you've typed in 04, chances are you're watching this video that you're watching right now. So for the consulting hypnotist, well, actually no, before we really jump into the content here, I want to start this month's video with a bit of a challenge. This is something that all of you watching this video can jump in and do right away. Now, I'm going to be talking about giving live talks. Now, sure, you have to line that up. You have to contact the group. I'll give you some strategies on that. You have to find those groups, make contact, set it up, wait for the event, then eventually show up and do your talk. However, specifically with this network marketing concept, this is probably one of the most overlooked things, in my opinion, in any business building thing. To be fair, even when I have a client coming in that building their business is part of their goal, you know, maybe we're working on confidence, maybe we're working on self-esteem, self-limiting beliefs, unpacking those and letting that go. But still, any business that I've ever met, any client that's ever come in for any sort of business improvement goal, when it's been appropriate, I've even shared some of this information with them. Not to step into a mindset of business coaching, but just because it's got to be one of the fastest, easiest, and most efficient ways to start up a brand new business. So again, I'm going to give you a bit of a challenge here. And I'll phrase it the way that I like to phrase it. If you cannot pull off one of these events, whether it's a live talk, setting it up at least, or specifically finding a networking event and showing up, many areas are going to have multiple meetings from one month to another, different groups as well. If you can't even line something up in the next 2 weeks, you're, sincerely I say this, you're not even trying. I want you out there doing. So again, everything I'm about to share with you is insanely easy. It's a lot of fun too. So I highly recommend, even before I give you the content here, give yourself the challenge that you will take action on this within the next 2 weeks. If you do that, you're going to have more clients. We're going to be building our profession. Everybody wins. It's going to be fantastic. So again, for the consulting hypnotist, here's the theme this month. For the consulting hypnotist looking to grow their practice, time is often more available than money. So why not invest our time more wisely? Why not make use of our time in a wonderful way that's spreading the big story of our consulting hypnotism profession, as well as advancing your own business as well? So by talking about networking events, specifically which ones they are, where they meet, who the people are that attend, and what are those things you're going to say to them when you show up. Also talking about live talks. How do we structure that talk? How do we begin to customize that information? That's where we're going in this month's video. So in this month's program, first of all, the upcoming Teleseminar that's going to follow up to this video. Elsa Meldridge Jr. and I will be on that live call. That's going to be Wednesday, April 30th, 2014, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Really easy information to find that web address, budurl.com/hypnotismsuccess04. Again, that live event is going to be Wednesday, April 30th, 2014, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That website will address put up there again later. So again, the opening challenge. Let's put this information in the work in the next 2 weeks. That's going to be very easy for you to do. I want to spend a lot of time on this month for a very standard, very simple reason. This is how I started my business. This is what really got things up and running. Again, if you've been following the story so far, my background, I came into all of this through stage hypnosis. It was something that I was interested in. I began to learn more about it. And about the time that I began to transition my life around, when I began to really focus on working with my clients one-on-one, this is the one thing that overnight I found so many different possibilities, so many different areas that I could begin to make use of this strategy, and just jumped in right away. Every possible opportunity I could, this is what I was doing. And within a span of about 3 weeks, I had a packed schedule. Very easily done. So again, I want to focus on this really strongly this month because this is something that worked that well for me. So again, when you start a new business, what do you have more time of? What do you have more, which asset do you have more of? Time or, I've already said it, time or money. You've got a lot more time, chances are. So for most people, again, it's that factor of that time. If you have a lot of money, now this is another side note, if you have a lot of money, you could be throwing that money into print advertising. But specifically in this space, about a month ago, I had several people after one of the monthly meetups. We did an entire workshop. That one was on the Esdale State. But people, as they tend to do, gathered around after the meetup and just chatting about what they were doing. And here's this one talking about this local health magazine. Here's this one talking about this local family magazine. And the conversation was thousands of dollars they were spending on these advertisements that really weren't converting for them. Again, remember back to the previous videos, if you can't track it, it's not worth doing. And if you really want to hear my self-limiting belief on this, if these companies are finding you and asking for your money, chances are they need you more than you need them. So again, I've yet to meet someone who has really matched the level of success that I've created here by paying for advertisements in a magazine, a newspaper. You know, it works. Absolutely, it can work. But I'd rather see you so much use this time more valuably. Save that money for things that are going to be very important to you. Save that money for something that's actually going to be a return on investment rather than it's kind of, you know, throwing darts and hope they stick. So again, I'd rather have you focus on this. So if money is more around than time, which some people would have that benefit. I had a student in a recent class who is going into retirement from another career and is rather flush with cash. She's in a very nice position and was kind of looking at it going, oh, I'd rather just throw the money at something advertising and see what happens. But again, my encouragement was this material that I'm about to share with you at home. So let's first of all start to talk about network marketing. Now, the term network marketing for some communities has also been linked to multi-level marketing. And again, these two things are really not the same. There may be some multi-level marketing companies, which I'll give a definition in a moment, that begin to call it network marketing. And what I mean by that is, let's kind of go back to some of the classic examples. Amway products, Arbonne skincare, what's the Tupperware party type things, that kind of format, where all of a sudden, if you've ever had a friend of yours suddenly stick a catalog in your hands and ask you to purchase things from them, that was that multi-level marketing. As they said on The Simpsons one time, no, it's not a pyramid scheme, it's a triangle plan. And I say that not to put that down, because actually, specifically some of those products that are out there, they're quite good. The Arbonne stuff at home with our kids, it's great. So it's a marketing model, though, in which someone is at the top of it and they're filling in their team of salespeople. So again, I want to draw that delineation first of all. And I'm not here to put down the multi-level marketing. In fact, some of those people in multi-level marketing, you're going to meet them through network marketing. And they tend to be amazing, amazing connectors. So don't dismiss that right away. There are a lot of people doing it badly. We'll put it at that. But there are some real rock stars out there within that multi-level marketing format that are going to prove to be wonderful contacts for you to make. So again, as I begin to talk about network marketing, understand if you already have that as a preconceived notion, I'm talking about something else here. Network marketing is going to places where other business owners are gathering. It's going to places where other businesses are being represented, and most often it's something involving some sort of breakfast or a lunch or a dinner, maybe a cocktail hour, maybe some sort of fundraising event. Or basically, here's the room, everybody's going to gather in, bring your business cards, and just go in and meet people. And I've given a bit of a list here in terms of what are some of the specifics that I found before. In nearly every single area, now for those of you that are international, this will vary, but here in the United States, we have a very common thing, which is a Chamber of Commerce. I believe it's mostly an international thing as well, but again, it may vary depending on your local region. But chances are they have something like it just under a different name. Chamber of Commerce is that local connection between the local businesses as well as the local sort of governmental politics region. So for example, when I used to have the office in Old Town Alexandria, I was very active with the Old Town Alexandria Chamber of Commerce. It was something that nearly every month, once or twice, there'd be some sort of meeting. There'd almost always be some kind of breakfast. There'd almost always be some sort of after-hours event. Some local political figure would get up, give some updates about things that are going on in the area, and then they'd have some sort of networking event begin to play out from there. We'll detail that later. Cocktail party. This may be connected with some sort of organization. It may also just be connected with something else as well. So for example, I can think of a recent one, which was there was a local gym that recently reopened. They had closed for renovations, and they did some sort of cocktail event. They shut down the machines, of course, because, well, alcohol and treadmills, They set up some sort of event where there were drinks, there was food being passed around, and just local businesses could show up and just represent themselves. Business Networking International, BNI, are the call letters for that one. I'll spend some time specifically talking about that one. It's a little bit more time demanding than the other ones that I'll mention here so far, but it is one specifically that I spent a lot of time in and got some great benefit from it. A great website you've probably already heard me reference so far, meetup.com. You can find various groups on that. We'll go through these in specifics as we roll forward. Trade meetings. I can give a specific one as an example. There was one that a client of mine actually invited me to one day. He had come in for some sessions, and at the end of it he mentions, "Oh, I'm going to this meeting. Do you want to come along?" And sure enough, I had blocked off some time that day to get some work done, but here was an invite with a very happy client, so I followed him over to the event. It was actually an event just for computer programmers. I was working with him for some self-esteem, for some public speaking fears, and by going with him to this event, everybody in that room, they were all computer programmers, hardware techs, people who would build computers, people who would do network solutions, that kind of thing. And of course, I was the only hypnotist in the room, but again, that's going to be true of nearly every one of these groups we could reference moving forward. Another one that's going to be a very common environment is that of fundraising events. The theme of fundraising for good has become a big thing in our modern era. Here's this fundraiser that's going on for this organization. Your attendance is paid by $40, and that covers food and drinks once you're inside, and all the proceeds go to this organization. That's one that I've done a few of, but not as many as the others. So simply put, the whole concept here of network marketing, anywhere that people gather to talk about business, you can be there as well. And I'll give you the example that I may have shared before, the example that I may have shared before, that there I was, it was a Chamber of Commerce event many years ago. And it's the format of what they called round table networking. Think of speed dating, but it's for business owners. There was a big 8-top table in the middle of the room. There were dozens of tables in this environment. It was a major restaurant in the Old Town Alexandria area. And I show up, and I'm sitting there. I've got a big stack of business cards with me, a couple of brochures as well, some handouts to put in people's hands. And the story goes, the mayor gets up and gives some opening remarks. The Chamber of Commerce gets up. They were doing a transition of leadership, I believe, that month. So they were updating what was going on with that, some details about the website. For the first 45 minutes, basically business, hundreds of people in the room. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, great, let's begin. The way this will work is that look at the table you're sitting at right now. You have a number in front of you. I think I had like number 7 or 8, 6 or 7 actually. And there I was. Then the premise was they're going to give the table 8 minutes. Everybody gets 1 minute. Go around the table, go around the table and introduce yourselves. And then once that 8 minutes is up, they ring a bell, and then you switch tables. Go to another position where you're at that number. That way you get a different group of people every single time. Very first table, there I am. There's a funny thing that happens with the Chamber of Commerce, which is that there's no real regulation as to who gets in and who doesn't get in. What I mean by that is you can have multiple members with the same profession. Here's what I mean by that. There's my first table, and the round table begins. I'm a banker. I'm a realtor. I'm a banker. I'm a realtor. It's a pattern. I'm a banker. I'm a realtor. I'm a banker. I'm a hypnotist. Wait, what? And the conversation stops. And sure enough, I did have the most interesting job of anyone at that table. And as the day progressed, the moment I said what I did for a living, the same experience occurred. To be fair, let's talk about some things about the environment of these Chambers of Commerce meetings. So, for example, there's a local bank. It's a bank that's based out of Virginia. So you're only going to find this bank here in Virginia. And basically, the bank is, of course, paying their employees, but very often they'll send their employees to this event. So there's an interesting dynamic to keep in mind here. As a sole business owner, I'm paying for myself to be there. But here's this bank manager that the bank is paying for that bank manager to attend. So it's a little bit of an interesting dynamic. I'm there for myself. He's there to represent his bank. Granted, I'm there to represent my business. I'm there to also represent this field of hypnotism. Yet at the same time, you can see there's a little bit of an interesting dynamic shift that occurs from me to someone else in that environment. So needless to say, again, as soon as I said the word hypnotist, conversation stopped about everyone else. And it was all questions for me. And there I was trying to be polite. Oh, you were next. But he wanted to ask me questions because he wanted to quit smoking. He became a client within the next week. So again, the theme here, and I shared this previously before, within all these environments, we have the most interesting job of anybody in the room. And to be fair, everyone else who walks into that meeting, whether it's the videographer, whether it's the photographer, whether it's the banker, whether it's the realtor, whether it's the mortgage broker, whether it's the insurance salesman, every one of those people in that environment could walk into that room with that same mindset, that they have the most interesting job of anybody in the room. You know, we talk about power of positive thinking. We talk about, all the themes from The Secret, Think and Grow Rich, all that good stuff out there about put the good energy out there, and that's what we're going to get back in. We walk in the room with a bit of a foot in the door, though, because as a hypnotist, we have a profession that, just kind of gets that response that people go, well, tell me more. Tell me about this. I work with normal everyday people with normal everyday problems. There's a magical thing about that statement, which is that it invites more questions. Well, like what? Well, I work with clients to quit smoking. We'll talk about those specifics as we move forward. So the key also with these events is that it's not just about the people who are in the room with you that day. It's also about who are those people that everybody in that room also knows. And I'll give you a specific example here. One of the meetings I went to, this was like 3 years ago, there was a representative salesperson from a local carpet company, and she's there. Now, of course, her bigger company is paying for her, the employee, to be there, yet she's also gone in with a little bit of research. She has a list. She needs this service, this service, this service, and that service. And as she's there talking about her carpet company, they do restoration of, fine rugs. They do carpet cleaning. It's actually a great company. They're the ones who do the carpet here. They come in, they do these services, but she's also there shopping around for herself. She moved into a new condo, townhome, whatever. There was an existing security system. She needed someone to hook that thing up. She wanted to lose weight. And we met. She wanted to do all these other things, and we became that conversation. This client, you hear of word of mouth. She eventually became a mouth. She was there referring her coworkers. She was referring her friends. But again, she went into that environment with the mindset of I'm here to represent my business, but she was also there to shop for herself as well. So again, it's not just the people that are in that room, it's also the people that they know. So let's begin to break these down a little bit further. I was previously, well, let me actually give the disclaimer here first of all. Again, this is how I built my business. Now, to be fair, this is something I actually haven't done too much of in recent years, and I should be doing more of it. And I'll give you the specific reason why I'm not doing it so much anymore. Everything I've shared up until now, it's just working for me. This was very, and I'll give you some specific numbers here. I was very successful with this, to the point that when I finally left some of this behind, some of the members of those groups were a bit shocked that I left. People would usually stop showing up to these things because they're going, oh, I win, it didn't work for me. It was really working for me. Just when the intention became, how do I begin to automate even more of this stuff? How do I begin to set it and forget it within all the wonderful ways that I've shared with you so far? So until that stuff was up and running at full steam ahead, this is what I was doing. And this was producing a very, very vibrant source of income for me. I was very active in the local Chamber of Commerce. I found it to be very successful. However, I found other things were a bit more successful. What I really did to build my business up was Business Networking International, BNI, Business Networking International. You can do a search for your local area. In many areas, there may be multiple chapters as well. The more metropolitan areas will have a lot more chapters. To scan from the southern part of Northern Virginia up to the northern part of Northern Maryland, basically a radius of about 30 to 45 minutes driving from me, I can probably find about 60 or 70 chapters. Again, it's much more in this area, but in other areas there might just be a few. Now, even if you don't have a group like this in your area, the principles that I'm going to share I learned through going through BNI are the same principles that made me more successful with my Chamber of Commerce, or the more successful strategies I used for the networking events as well. So let's begin to really break these things down. But again, The chapter that I was a member of in Alexandria, when I was active in that, was actively passing more than $2 million of closed business among the chapter group of about 40 members. And in the best year that I had with that group, I could specifically track about $40,000 of income just from that group, just coming in for me. Income was coming in from other sources as well, but in the best year that I did it, that was the total that was coming in that year. So let's again begin to break these groups down into a little bit more detail here. Excuse me. Chamber of Commerce. This is going to be a very formal yet informal meeting. And again, it's going to have some variation from one locality to the other. It's going to have some variation as well from one meeting to another. The structure tends to be a little bit more loose in terms of the networking environment. It's not as structured of a networking environment, specifically because the Chamber of Commerce is there to serve a greater purpose. They're there to build up the local businesses, they're there to represent the local community, and as a little bit of a side note I found, they'll also have some networking opportunities at their meetings. Even though it's specifically billed as a networking event, there's other business to be handled at that meeting. Of course, the entire membership as well as guests are welcome to attend. Very often a cocktail party format, very often, again, that speed dating type of format. The meetings tend to usually be over a breakfast, lunch, or some sort of after-hours event. The most informal networking I've found has been that you can find on meetup.com. This is going to be very informal. Now, these groups are very anti-sales. If you show up to a meetup event, and let me give you a specific example of what I'm talking about here. Let's say, and I'll use one recently, I had a former student who was very, very interested in working with veterans who had been diagnosed with PTSD. He was very interested in going and providing some sort of service. And through his background of also being a veteran, he had a bit of a foot in the door for some of these groups that he was attending. Yet the early days of what his strategies were very much a, this is what I can do to help you. You need to come see me. This is my rate. Come work with me. This is how I can help. And there was a couple of groups he wasn't welcome back into. So they're a very a very anti-sales type group. So what the strategy would often be, if you have a specific niche market you're interested in working with, go on to meetup.com if that website serves your local area, and do a search for those specific groups. Find those groups where those people would likely gather that would benefit from hearing your message. And what I would tend to recommend is just attend as a guest. Just be there and provide some type of value. Engage in the conversation, interact with the possible environment. Provide value first, and then follow up with some sort of offer. This is a group that's probably going to have some type of speaker every single month. Hey, that could be you. Volunteer to do that. Hey, I'd love to come back next month or a month later on for there and give a talk specifically on this concept, hypnosis techniques for whatever the specific niche market will be. Go there, then provide that value. The groups can be very private depending on their subject matter. So again, it's something to research for yourself and find the best possible fits. Another possible option with these, if you find a specific one you'd like to begin to work with, offer to sponsor that group. It's actually a nice service you can offer, even if it's as simple as providing food for that event. Show up with drinks and sodas, just make contact, of course, in advance. Or again, offer that talk. I would share, this is one that I made use of a few times when I first really got started. This is actually dating back to when I was in Maryland that I was using this one. I just found it to be a little bit too informal for my tastes. I didn't necessarily find, well, I'll phrase it this way. I didn't find the people who are often attending these events were the real networking professionals. They were more of the amateur level. I was finding a lot more of the multi-level marketing people in that category, but they weren't necessarily the good ones. You know, the guy who would show up and say, hey, I have this product, it does this. Does anyone want to buy it? As opposed to really providing that value, really providing that research, providing that conversation. You're going to hear me detail what we call VCP moving forward. You'll understand why that, I have this, who wants to buy it, really just doesn't work for people. Business Networking International, BNI. This is, again, is the group that I really thrived within. Now, they're going to have some requirements. They're going to have some rules. in that members are expected to be present at all weekly meetings. And very often these groups will have upwards of 52 meetings a year, depending on the holidays. You know, if you're in a group that meets on a Thursday and here comes Thanksgiving, they won't meet on Thursday that week. But if you're in a group that meets on a Wednesday and here comes Thanksgiving, there was a specific chapter locally that I used to be a frequent guest of that would specifically always meet that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. They would always meet every single week. What's helpful to know is that all these rules around BNI, Business Networking International, these rules were actually created by the members over the years. Consider this, a networking event, a Chamber of Commerce. Here's everybody gathered together. And there's really just kind of a free-for-all type environment. The difference with BNI is that everything is tracked. Everything is specifically monitored. And they only allowed a certain number of absences each year. If I remember back, it's been about a year since I was a member, again, for the same reasons I shared before, but this was wonderfully successful for me. What I tend to share is that, what was it? I think it was like 6 absences a year, and you could arrange 6 substitutes a year. So basically, once a month, you could have a reason to not be there, just either not show up or send somebody else as your substitute. Again, more details specifically on that on their website. Members are expected to pass referrals and track their past business. And the initial investment as a member may be somewhere around about $500. It recently went up since I left behind my membership. But what are the real benefits of this? Only 1 member per seat, and the roles are defined very strongly. The best anecdote, this is actually a bit of a legend within BNI, but it actually happened at a chapter meeting that I was attending one day. About this time, a couple of years ago, there I am in a meeting, it's April 15th, it's tax day. And the accountant in that group, it's not your Chamber of Commerce environment where there's dozens of accountants in the room. No, there's only one. There's an exclusivity policy with that role as the accountant. And the accountant gets up, stands up, picks up his folding chair and holds it up in the air. And just very boldly says, today is April 15th. This is the busiest day of my year. But I'm here with all of you because this chair that I'm holding on to is my seat. And this chair was worth about $250,000 for my business last year. Thank you all so much. I'm so glad to be with you all here today. He sits down, and of course the entire group breaks out into applause. So again, this was an accountant that was doing no other advertising than attending that weekly meeting. All of his business came from networking and word of mouth, and that was it. He was entirely a referral-based business, thanks to BNI. The accountability is the biggest thing. You can go to a Chamber of Commerce for years and never once buy a service from anybody, and no one will think twice to ask you about it. But at a BNI meeting, they're going to be tracking the referrals you're passing and seeing if things are actually closing. And over the years, I was a member of it for about 3 or 4 years. I consistently saw people whose memberships they wanted to renew, but they were told they weren't welcome back. So again, these are rules that were created by their members. It seems a little harsh, but again, specifically the group that I was a member of, I think this year just passed that $3 million mark. So they want people who are actively participating. There's a real benefit to this as well, in that the chapters are typically anywhere from like 20 to maybe 50 members, and you have the same people in the room every single month. Let's talk about group dynamics here. Here you are at a Chamber of Commerce. You are your own salesperson talking to 100 people, one at a time. Or BNI, Business Networking International, what's the trade-off? You're in a room training 35 other people to be out there in the local community as your sales force. And that's the principle behind BNI. It did a great job of training you in the rules of networking. I'm going to give you this training here now. It's something that they shared. It's something that you can also begin to spill over to the other parts of networking as well. The model, let's talk about it this way. First of all, what's the best way of phrasing it? The networking model is a match for every business, but it's not a match for every person. I'll say that again, and listen to the nuances there. It is a match for every business. It's not a match for every person. There was a group I was a member of at one point that specifically there was a photographer that became a member. And all the expletives you can think of, that's what this guy was. Just a bad person. He would accuse people of things, he would lie about things, you'd send him a referral, he'd be absolutely rude to these people, to the point that I, coming from a family where many people are professional photographers, I knew this guy's story coming in, I had voiced that. I was still technically a new member, they should have listened, but again, he was very quickly thrown out as well. So I've met many other photographers that did wonderfully well in BNI. This guy was just a bit of a jerk. Not a good person, just wasn't a good match for that group. They introduced the theme of VCP. And what that stands for is visibility, credibility, profitability. And think of this as an arc that someone has to pass before they're willing to send you a referral. Visibility. First, they have to see you and know you exist. Then from there, we transition into credibility. And they begin to understand why we're qualified to do what it is we do. And then from there, we transition into profitability, where actually the business transactions can begin to flow. Let's break this down in another category. Maybe at some point you've met a doctor, and you were asking that doctor if they'd be willing to send you referrals. Now, let's assume that you just met this doctor. VCP, where are you in that conversation? You're still here at visibility. And there's still more work to be done to then transition over to credibility and then over to profitability as well. This is further away. So again, lead generation. How do we begin to navigate that conversation? Well, we want to gather some information, share some concepts, really begin to communicate with them at a better level, and now we can be in a place where they understand how it is they can begin to benefit by sending their patients to us by way of referral. Visibility, credibility, profitability. Perhaps you've had a past client. You were asking about sending some sort of referral to you. And you definitely have credibility if you help that person. But sometimes just the simple statement of saying, I'm never too busy for your referrals. Who else do you know that could benefit from this service? Asking that kind of simple question can transition them from the credibility you'd absolutely have. They came to you as a client and they were successful. But we have to then train them for that profitability as well. And the whole concept of following simple protocols, attending regular meetings, meeting with the membership on a regular basis, passing referrals, and reporting thank you dollars. A simple side note, and I would share this is a common theme that I've found, and I've asked other hypnotists I know that have made use of the same strategy. I'm a big proponent of everything it is that we should be doing with confidentiality. If you want to have a wonderful learning lesson, to look at all the real HIPAA regulations which we should be following, the specific nuances of how we should begin to store our data, it's something we all should be doing in a much better way. So basically put, I would be able to put in a thank you dollar that says thank you to this realtor for sending me a referral, and the thank you dollars totaled this month $1,800. But I would never specifically write on that little slip that the membership would have, thank you for sending me, and I'll make up a name here, Barbara Davidson. Barbara Davidson came to me and she did wonderfully. Even though Ann, the realtor, referred Barbara, her friend, my client, I didn't want that information out there. And I just reference ahead of time, within 3 or 4 years of being a member of BNI, that was never a challenge. So I have met a few people over the years who'd say, I would never do that because they want you to share your client data. No, they don't. No, they don't. So these are our basic groups. And even if you don't want to put in the time, money, energy investment that it is for a BNI, though it worked really well for me, the same concepts that I've shared so far are the concepts that you can use yourself to really greatly benefit, whether it's a Chamber of Commerce meeting, whether it's a cocktail event that you're attending with friends, whether it's some sort of art gallery opening or anywhere that people will gather. The elevator talk, the NGH talk, is very simple, very direct. I work with normal everyday people with normal everyday problems using individual hypnotic techniques. And it's a great phrase specifically for the reason that it begins to invite conversation. But I'll share with you a brief preview of my format. Yes, we will consider this a bit of an advertisement because coming up at the NGH convention this year, 2014, I'm giving a talk, Ride Your Elevator Speech to the Top. It's my formula in terms of how you begin to really break into those groups. I'll give you a basic outline because I have a lot of content here to cover, but we'll cover that basic formula here. There'll be a lot more detail in that upcoming talk at the convention. See you there. I have to. I'll give you the variation first of all. There's another local hypnotist that I highly respect. He was a member of another chapter meeting. And I went as a guest one time to his chapter. And the elevator speech that he got up and gave, there's a moment in the meeting where everybody gets around and introduces themselves to the entire group, or it's a chamber of commerce and you're going around the table or just walking around and meeting people. And this is all good information that he shared. This is my name, I'm a hypnotist, this is the type of client I work with. The body is a wonderful organic pharmacy. Inside of our bodies is the perfect chemistry lab to send the appropriate sensations and feelings inside of ourselves to miraculously heal all sorts of conditions and challenges. I'm working with clients on a day-to-day basis who have this issue of their health and they'd like to begin to improve or looking for more organic ways to begin to feel better. Again, this is my name, this is my business. And that was his basic speech, which for the hypnotist, we would hear that and go, ooh, yeah, that's good. There's a challenge with that. The concept here, the best mindset to have at these meetings, is to go in and basically have the mindset of, I want to train everybody in that meeting to walk out of here knowing who my best client is. I want them to know who my best referral is, and I want them to know exactly what I want to work with. So an example of one of the ones that I've done, and I'll give you the basic formula here. I start with my name, my business and title, my location, and a simple question. Who do you know that blank? And whatever's in that blank is become a specific niche topic. The more specific I am, the theme in all of this is be specific to be terrific. The more specific I can become, the better my message is going to land. Because what if Mike, the independent health insurance broker, isn't a smoker, but I got up and talked about smokers. But what if I could talk about smokers in a specific way that the moment he encounters somebody who's ready to quit smoking that fits my specific category, something clicks in Mike's head and he suddenly knows, oh, I got to give this guy Jason's card. This is a perfect fit, as opposed to walking around with my business card mindlessly looking around. Who needs an organic pharmacy? Wait, what the hell was that? Yeah, it's a little bit vague. Be specific to be terrific. I would share one little simple nuance as well. Up until I transitioned from high school to college, I had a hobby of doing magic, card tricks and such, the mentalism stuff as well. I haven't done that in years. But I have several friends who are still very active in it. A friend of mine actually up in Canada was a magician in a local chapter. B&I chapter up there, they're up there as well. And he shared a funny nuance with me when I first joined any of these networking events, which was that he found he had to say the word magician twice, because it's not a word that people hear every single day. So the first time they hear it, it's the puppy dog. And the second time they hear it, they go, oh, okay. Otherwise, what would he say? My name is Richard, I'm a professional magician. And what would people respond? Oh, what instrument do you play? Yeah, they didn't hear him right. So for that reason, I would like to lean into the word hypnosis a little bit more frequently. The name of the business. Now, again, my business name is Virginia Hypnosis. Ever since I've been that, I've had a bit of a gag about my business cards. I don't hand them that many out of them because of this line. My name is Jason Linett. I'm in Virginia, and I do hypnosis. My business is called Virginia Hypnosis, and my website is virginiahypnosis.com. Do you still need a business card? And it's kind of said in a funny way, but I would lean into that specifically with my talk. So here's an example of one of the ones that I used before. And again, the theme of being specific to be terrific. You got to remember it. Hello, my name is Jason Linett. I'm a board-certified hypnotist. I'm an instructor, and I'm the director at Virginia Hypnosis. Who do you know that recently purchased an electronic cigarette? Recent research has found that the electronic cigarette actually has only had a success rate for smoking cessation down around like 7%. Actually, the FDA declared that they're not allowed to call it a stop smoking aid anymore. At best, it's a slightly healthier alternative. Turns out many other variations of quitting out there are also not as effective. The patch is only about 20%, the gum maybe 25%, when in clinical studies, hypnotism has been found to have upwards of a 75 to 95% success rate with those clients ready to quit smoking. Who do you know that is ready to save a lot of money, improve their health, and take back control of their lives? If you know someone who's ready to quit smoking, send them my way. Again, my name is Jason Linett. I'm in Virginia and I do hypnosis. My business is Virginia Hypnosis and my website is Virginia Hypnosis. And that was my basic format. That was my basic formula. And what happened? 45 people then left that meeting. And the moment they saw someone with that little thing in their fingers, that little electronic cigarette, something clicked and they went, ooh, Jason. And they think back to me. So what kind of referrals can we ask for? Let's break it down into two categories here. First of all, there's the golden egg. Just right around Easter, right? The golden egg. This would be the specific client. Smokers, weight loss, fear of public speaking. This is a great one for these Chamber of Commerce and other networking events because you can see those people that are terrified when they stand up. Speaking opportunities and training events. Specific individual things. We can also begin to look for those golden gooses, those golden geese as well, by looking for the doctors that can then begin to refer those individual clients, by looking for the personal trainers that perhaps are working with weight loss clients as well, by looking for those specific referral partners. Again, the benefit of becoming active in these groups, this is not a one-time event in my opinion, this is an ongoing strategy. Whether it's an ongoing strategy group like BNI, whether it's just attending your local Chamber of Commerce on a regular basis. By connecting with people. I had a life insurance agent that for months, until he moved out of the area, and I connected him with someone else once he moved. As soon as he heard smoker, there was my brochure handed to the client right away. I got so many referrals from this life insurance agent. So many different possibilities are there. So again, the main point here is when you're there, look for that specific. We talked about niche marketing. Be specific to be terrific. Really begin to paint that picture. Use your hypnotic language. Really begin to draw in those people around you in terms of this is what I'm looking for. Another one. My name is Jason Linett. I'm a board-certified hypnotist. I'm an instructor, and I'm the director at Virginia Hypnosis. Who do you know that sleeps with a mouth guard? There's an interesting bit of research that points to the fact that the mouth guard helps to protect the teeth, yet may begin to deteriorate the joint up here a little bit quickly. I'm a hypnotist, and the action of grinding the teeth while someone is asleep is an unconscious behavior. Hypnosis is a subconscious art of going in and helping people to relieve the stress, the frustration, and the actual habit themselves. I'm looking to meet your personal dentist. That dentist that you're sitting there with their fingers in your mouth. Next time you're there, tell them you know a hypnotist that works with clients for relieving that issue. I'd love to meet those people who sleep with those mouth guards, but even better, I'd love to meet your personal dentist who helps to give those things out. Again, my name is Jason, and so on. The more specific we can possibly get. Okay, I'll share the best one ever. You talk about going out with a bang. The very last networking event formally that I went to. I've been to a few over the last year or so, but mostly out of a relationship building with past clients, past referral sources. Again, I don't want to say this to discount the strategy, but again, as I made other strategies work better, I started doing a lot less of this. And I went for a little bit of shock on this one, but it worked. Hello, my name is Jason Linett. I'm a board-certified hypnotist. I'm an instructor of hypnosis, and my office is called Virginia Hypnosis. I didn't really say the same thing every single time. This week's story ends in murder, so listen carefully. Great, now I've got your attention. A office. She has had a lifelong fear of bugs, and the cicadas are about to fly into the area. There was one time she stayed at a hotel for 3 days because she found a bug in her bed. There was one time she didn't work for an entire week because there was a spider on her desk. This woman has not parked under a tree in 15 years. After our very first session, she saw a bug in the windshield of her car and killed it with her bare hands. And in that moment, she called me and said, "This is cool. Who do you know that is ready to overcome a fear?" My name is Jason Linett. I'm in Virginia, and so forth. Tell stories. Interact with people. Really begin to draw people in with these stories. Now, some of the critics out there would say that with all this network marketing stuff, you're expected to send referrals to people that you don't yet know. Well, the easiest way to build credibility in these groups is actually very simple. And actually, I'd share this because this is what I did. The moment I became a member of one of these groups, I reviewed a lot of my own personal services. Excuse me, car insurance, home insurance, renter's insurance at my office, liability insurance, home products, health insurance. And actually, by doing that, I actually found that most of the members of my group could provide those services a lot cheaper than I was already paying. And immediately I was established as being credible in the group. The fastest way to ever get referrals, by the way, is to send them yourself. There was a local doctor that I wanted to meet and had a wonderful bit of a track record of a specific niche that he worked within. And just because I read articles about this guy, I just said, I heard this person is great to one of my clients. You know, call them up, see if it's a fit for you. And all of a sudden, here's the doctor calling me and saying, "I don't think we've met, but thank you." Fastest way to build that credibility is to send referrals in that specific way. So let's also spend some time transitioning here. Another thing you can begin to make use of in a live way. And that's by getting out there and giving talks about hypnosis. Where can we do this? Any way, any place that people gather. The whole concept of getting out and giving a talk on hypnosis. You could just get up there and give a pre-talk. And as hypnotists, we can give a 1-minute pre-talk, we can give a 5-minute pre-talk, we can give a 20-minute pre-talk. There are some people who could do upwards of 2 hours. I tend to find the more you give a person, sometimes the more they gloss over and not in the way that's really going to help you sometimes. But again, I may have shared this in a previous video, the history of hypnotism. We have some really colorful characters throughout the stories. So to get up there and talk about that, to share some past client case studies, you know, making it confidential, change the name and reference that as well. Any place that people gather, you could be there giving a talk. What are the easiest options? What we call service clubs, fraternity groups, Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis, Moose, Elks, Eagles. These are all groups that actually tend to have either weekly or monthly meetings. And they have a wonderful problem. They need to find speakers. They need to find people who will come in and provide some type of value for their membership. Different associations. All these groups have different types of meetings from time to time. I hesitate on this one. And the confidence builder for all these groups. Most of their speakers suck. Yeah, I said it. Most of their programs that they would have are very dry. There may be governmental in nature. Here's this person who recently attended this conference, and they're going to get up and talk about their experience. And they get there, and mine's out of screen on purpose, but they get up behind their lectern and they just stand there and they just read the entire time and they don't actually interact with the group in front of them. Most of their presentations are very dry and very boring. So my first bit of advice, you're going to show up, they're going to have that lectern there, pick it up, move it off to the side, and just stand there in front of these people. Just really interact with those people there in front of you. I need my notes, though, for this talk, so I'm going to cheat. So, you know, bring some energy to these groups. Be excited about this stuff. If you don't have a passion for this stuff, you might need to review while you're still in it. You know, I'm constantly reading, attending conferences, hosting the meetups, you know, all this stuff. The more we can do of that, the better we get at all of this. So bring that enthusiasm, bring that energy to hypnotism that you absolutely have to these talks. Again, most of them are very dry, they're very boring, they're just purely informational and there's no real showbiz to it. Give them an experience. This is where, as hypnotists, as consulting hypnotists, we can really begin to change people's perceptions. No matter how short the talk is. There was one time I was invited to give a talk to a group, and the statement was, we'll give you 5 minutes to get up at the end and talk about hypnotism. Perfect. Now, I really would have liked 10. I really would have liked 15. Oh, 30 would have been phenomenal. But in the structure of their meeting, they're a lunchtime group for 45 minutes. They have specific business that they cover, and then for 5 minutes they call it an educational moment, and a person would get up every month and do that. And one of the members, I wasn't a member of this group, one of the members of that group actually invited me and asked me to do the educational moment that month. So for 5 minutes, I got up and I presented something. Actually, I just presented a brief collapsing anchors routine using NLP some strategies and just guided the group through it and told them how they could do it after the event. And from that event, I got so many different referrals. Without an experience, there's really nothing tangible about what we've done. So what are the easiest things that we can do? Suggestibility tests. Now, of course, in our modern era, with a nod to Roy Hunter, do not call them suggestibility tests. I'm going to test you to see how suggestible you are. No. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to discover the power of your imagination. This is kind of fun. Everybody take your hands and just extend your 2 pointer fingers and look at the space between them. Imagine I've just placed magnets on the tips of those fingers and feel them, whatever it is we want to do. I'll share a little bit of a nuance here. A lot of suggestibility tests would be with the eyes open or the eyes closed. When I used to do these talks, I would begin with the light and heavy arms. This arm's getting heavier, this arm's getting lighter. And I would ask for eye closure. And I'd be up at the front of the group giving my talk, and I'd be getting frustrated because there I was asking for some compliance. Close your eyes and follow some simple instructions. And half the group was doing it, the other half was not. And followed up after that, I would do the old finger magnets routine right afterwards. And people were more compliant with that one. And then one day, just by accident, I swapped the order. I forgot to do my light and heavy arms in that demonstration, and instead I did the finger magnets first. And then I went, oh, I haven't done the light and heavy arm thing yet. So I did that one second, asking for eye closure, and something interesting happened. I had 100% eye closure in that group. Well, think about it. Visibility, credibility, and profitability is really not in terms of this conversation here right now, but they had seen me and I had built some credibility because the fingers were drawing together. And then from there, I asked for the eye closure with the light and heavy arms. And at that point, something had already happened. And then from there, it was more credible to trust me and close their eyes and follow along with the experience. So if you're ever making use of suggestibility tests in terms of giving your talks, there's a great little side note to remember. Couple of different thoughts. You could, at some point in time of this talk, give a group experience. Maybe do a group induction, some positive confidence building, the simple ego strengthening stuff. Do that and then emerge to the group. There's a little side note that I tend to be a little critical on. I don't like doing the group demonstration in a short talk for a simple reason. In a short talk, I maybe don't have enough time to really round out a pre-talk in the kind of detail that I want them to have. So I don't want this one sitting at the end and going, oh, I didn't feel hypnotized. When in my pre-talk, I have a bit about, you may feel this, you may feel that, you may feel this. There's no one specific hypnotized feeling. It's the same reason behind the question about can self-hypnosis be trained by reading a good book on the subject? Well, it depends on the book. It depends on the client as well. We want them to really be guided through the experience and get our conviction in there as well. So my preferred method is rather simple. I'm going to get up. Let's assume I'm just giving a talk about hypnosis, 20 minutes. Here's the first chunk of my pre-talk. Here's some opening things that are interactive. Hey, let's do something fun for everybody. Take your hands and we're into the finger magnets. Great, give yourselves a round of applause. I'm going to tell a story about hypnotism. Here's a client who came to me, and here's an interesting experience that happened, which is kind of like the history of it. Here's why it's called hypnosis, and rolling forward, let's do something for everybody. Take your arms, stretch them out in front of you. Great. Close those eyes down. Take a deep breath in, relax, and just focus on those arms. And we're into our light and heavy arm routine. At that point in the conversation, I'm looking out in the group and seeing who are those people that are really responding to this stuff. And my style, thanks to previous trainers, is I'm going to be looking for that person who is really responding, who is going, wow, the person who's going, whoa, and go, hey, you want to come help me out? Notice I'm asking for a volunteer, but volunteering that person, and bring them up there and do some sort of instant induction. Give that group experience with the wow of getting that person to hypnosis that quickly. That's how I'm going to do it, because in that format, it's really a no-fail environment for me. Now, that's going to vary depending on your skills, your training, your experience, and your own personal approach. But I found by giving that real experience, they were getting the ins and outs of what hypnotism was about, but then also seeing something that was very impressive in a rapid amount of time. And remember as well, back to previous videos, lead generation. You don't just walk off the stage and go, thanks so much, call me, and leave. No, the classic advice was always about stand at the back of the room, pass out your brochures, go around to the tables ahead of time and put out that information. Instead, I want to maintain control of communication. So back to our lead generation video. Go back and watch that one again. You'll see the strategy, exactly what I did. I've just done my instant induction. Wouldn't it be great if you all could relax that quickly at work, just like Philip did? Well, actually, I've recorded for everybody a very special 10-minute self-hypnosis stress relief session. You can listen to it at the convenience of your office or your home, anywhere where it's appropriate to close your eyes. I've put a form on everybody's table. Just fill out your email address. I'll send that to you by the end of the business day today. To put it all together, that email was written before I showed up to the event. The stream of continuing messages was also already set up. They've opted in. And as soon as I get home, I just have to type in those email addresses or outsource it to someone else, plug it into my automation system, and those people then have those emails. And I'm in control of the conversation. To put this all really together, how do we really begin to put it all together? The way that I got most of my live talks was actually through my networking events. I'm a hypnotist, this is what I do, and perhaps I'd start a little bit more generic in some of these. I work with normal everyday people with normal everyday problems using individual hypnotic techniques. I'm looking for groups where people gather and need speakers. I give a very entertaining, informative 20-minute talk on hypnotism that's a perfect match for all sorts of groups. Who do you know that has a weekly or monthly meeting that needs speakers? I'd be happy to share with them a YouTube clip of me speaking so they can meet me before they even call me, or discuss this in person with them over the phone or at their office. My name is Jason Linett, and that's how I got these groups. Let's talk about the most successful one to date. That's what I did at one of my very first BNI groups in this local area. And from that, I got into the Rotary group down the road in my own neighborhood that my emails were not being responded to. All these groups that I reference, just do a search online. If you can find an email address, send a friendly message. This is what I do. This is the purpose of it. Let me know if you'd be interested. That was my basic approach. It was very non-salesy, very informal as well. And often I'd point to something else I already had. There's a lot of strength in a video. Here's a video of me. And as soon as you have one, there's a YouTube video, actually. It's not even hosted by me. It's the Crystal City Rotary Group. I'll make a specific link to it here as well. We'll make another redirect. It'll be hypnotismsuccess.com/talk. And make sure talk, T-A-L-K, is all lowercase for this to work. I'll make that a redirect as well. And it's just like the first 10 minutes of a Rotary group that I went and gave a talk to years ago. This group bought one of those flip cameras, and they would shoot the monthly meeting. And just in terms of protection of the information, although really it was just out of thought of, well, I don't want the whole thing up. I told them, after I do this thing, I forget what it was, you'll see it on the video, turn the camera off. You know, it'll build more curiosity if the video is only like 7 or 8 minutes long, as opposed to being all 30 minutes that they gave me. So again, hypnotismsuccess.com/talk. T-A-L-K, all lowercase, very important. That's going to redirect to that Rotary talk, so you can see a brief clip of one of the talks that I gave. And actually, when you've heard me so far say, I'll send you a video of me talking to a local business group, it's a nice way to meet me before you even walk in the door. That's the video that I send them. You'll see it. It's part of why that video has over like 12,000 hits. What's fun is this local group has other videos that are up, all with like 7 visits or like 20 visits. Mine has over 10,000. This video has been around. It gets a lot of attention. It's fun. Just got a new Boris, thanks for commenting on that video as well. So again, just as soon as I got one. So there I was at a BNI group, and I asked for live talk opportunities. I just did a talk for this group. Here's what I'd like to do. And I got this other Rotary group locally. I got in the door. I gave a talk. From doing that talk, let me walk through the numbers here. I got 5 clients from that group. My mindset when I walk into these, I am there to professionally represent the profession of hypnotism. And by accident, that's going to get me a lot of clients. That's what my premise was always. So I'm there professionally representing hypnotism, and I got 5 clients from it. This one eventually became a student. So 5 clients, let's be conservative, about $2,500 just right there. Then came, one of them became a student, add on about, we'll round it down, 1,500 up to 4,000. That then connected with the high school level of Rotary, which is Interact. And actually 3 weeks from now, I'm doing a fundraiser stage hypnosis program for them for the 4th year in a row. Multiply that, we'll round it down to be conservative, another $4,000 on top of that, plus the clients and spinoff that's come from that. From one elevator speech at a networking event, it produced well over about $15,000 to this day. All this stuff is connected. So there's not one strategy we're ever going to be using at a time. But again, for these live talks, I would say again, make them as non-salesy as possible. If you're at the front of the group doing buy my stuff, you're just at visibility. You're not yet at credibility or profitability yet. So it's a lot to take in terms of this month's video. You could, if you really wanted to, and I'll give you an option here, you could make an offer. If you wanted to make an offer, and I know people who do this and do wondrously well with it, the whole concept of discounting the services for those people who are in front of you live. Full disclosure, I learned the strategy from Sean Michael Andrews. He's actually got a great DVD about giving talks at women's gyms. It's a wonderful video. But specifically the concept of, here's what my fee usually would be, here's what it is for this group, but you have to respond before this specific day. If you want to do that, you could, but I'd rather give the opportunity to get onto my list, build the relationship, go from my visibility to my credibility to my profitability, and work the system much better. So what have we covered so far? We've covered getting out there and talking about hypnosis. Whether it's an environment where you can do it one person at a time, a couple of people around a cocktail table at a time, a couple of people at a 8-top table at a time, a BNI meeting with like 30 to 40 members at a time, or these live talks. I've done groups that have been 3 members. And yes, I showed up to that 3-member group and went, I left my office for this. Yet from that group of 3, again, it's not the people who are in the room, it's the people they also know. I think I could track about $3,000 of business from those 3 people who were there. They then referred me this other group. Actually, no, here's the better one. The local Rotary groups in terms of Alexandria. The group in Arlington that I also referenced, not the one that I'm going to put the video up of, but there's another group that's in the same area that has 3 members. Now, because I did that one with the 3 members, I finally got my foot in the door for the Alexandria City one, where there's like 150 people in the room. So again, the spinoff was actually much higher than I thought. So again, how do we put this all together? Just get out there and talk about this stuff. Look at your schedule. Look at the time you'd like to be sending clients. And if your chair is empty at that point in time, get up out of your office and go somewhere. Search online, meetup.com, Chamber of Commerce. In a more metropolitan area as well, you can bounce around. I went to the West Springfield Chamber of Commerce. I went to the Arlington, the Washington, D.C., Woodbridge, Virginia. Each of these major counties had their own. And some of the bigger cities had their own as well. BNI, they require that you eventually become a member if you've attended twice. But again, in areas such as this, there were multiple options. Yes, it's a bit more of a commitment, but I've given you some of the numbers, and I've met many other hypnotists who have done remarkably well using that strategy. You've probably heard of Sheila Granger with her virtual gastric band protocol. In her business segment of that class, she actually spends quite a bit of time talking about BNI. If it wasn't for BNI, we wouldn't know who she was, because actually it was through those connections that things really began to expand and expand, and she really got the success that we know her for today. I've met several other hypnotists that have made use of this strategy. The side benefit, again, being there in front of your local, excuse me, being there in front of your local community, representing your field professionally. And by accident, that's going to get you a lot of clients. Which brings in a bit of a metaphor. I had a client recently that for confidentiality purposes, I won't share the name, but if you spend any time watching Comedy Central, the late night talk shows, it's a stand-up comedian that's actually rather well known. The story goes, and there's actually a documentary based on this concept called Comedian, which was Here is Jerry Seinfeld. The TV show was on for many years, did remarkably well, and about the time they decided to bring the show to a close, he wanted to then go back out and do stand-up comedy once again. He wasn't really touring as much as he was. He wasn't active in the stand-up comedy as much as he was when the TV show was running. So the whole premise of this documentary called Comedian, unfortunately, I don't think it's on any of the streaming services. I think it might be on the Amazon Prime, but you have to pay for it. It's worth watching. It's pretty good. And the concept was, and if you look really close at one point, I'm actually in the audience for one of these bits. The premise was he had to rebuild his act. He had to get 1 hour of TV-ready material for HBO. So what is he doing? He's working off of notes. He's showing up to comedy clubs. He's a big-name guy. And here's another headliner who's on. And the show comes to an end. And this is what happened. The actor-comedian Robert Klein, we were in New York City, we went to go see him. And the MC comes out and says, I can't say why, but trust me on this. Stay in your seats. There's someone coming up in a few moments. You don't want to miss this. And of course, half the audience thought it was a ploy to sell more drinks, so they left. But we stuck around. And all of a sudden, they announce him Jerry Seinfeld, and he comes out on stage. Not on the bill, not promoted, he just shows up. He's got a guy in the audience with a camera. He walks up on stage with his glasses on, with his yellow pad, throws the notes on a bar stool, says some opening remarks, and then starts to do jokes, holding on to the yellow pad in his hands. It was an amazing experience because some of the stuff he did was incredible. Some of it. The majority of it was not yet ready. And to see him up there with a notepad in one hand and a pen in the other and go, one of the gags at one point was, yeah, that's not going on HBO. And he crossed it out. To see this documentary, there's a moment where an audience member is heckling him because he's doing so badly. I actually had the same experience happen a few years ago. Again, in New York City, we go to a comedy club, and the actor-comedian Chris Rock gets up, and he's delivering his material from a notepad, but he's just reading it. He's not doing the Chris Rock character. And I got a chance to meet him after the show and asked him, what's the strategy? And he goes, I have to know the material is funny on its own. People will laugh at me as my character, but I have to know the stuff in the paper is sound and solid. So why do I reference this? This comedian who was a client of mine, it's not Seinfeld or Chris Rock. I'd be bragging if it was now. He's in, and we're kind of talking about these two experiences that I had. And he goes, it's so meaningful for the comedian to have the opportunity to get up and be bad, to have that open mic night, to really begin to workshop material. Another guy you may have seen before. You know, look at the arc of these people who begin at the open mic night to the, group of comedians who are getting up to headlining, to a guy like the comedian Jim Gaffigan, who's now working massive theaters. So Louis C.K. I saw him at the Kennedy Center, where he's there at this historical space when here's a guy who used to be in the comedy club bar that would seat like 50 people. That smaller club is their opportunity to, quote, be bad at what they do. So I reference that as a bit of an extended metaphor here. As you find yourself getting out and giving your live talks, as you find yourself interacting with these business groups. Have this stuff down 100% on your very first try. You might. You might be like 80, 90 and be able to leave and be able to take some notes. The best advice, bring a video camera. If the quality is good, you can use it in your marketing. But also it's a good note for you. Or at best, what I've done before is I stuck a little voice recorder in my pocket, brought it home and listened to it afterwards. Even the networking events, even the live talks. Just to have that as a record and go back and go, yeah, I made that joke like 5 times and no one ever got it. Cut it. So just the practice of this. You know, it's our opportunity to get out there and really begin to practice. It's the thing to even keep in mind working with your clients for public speaking fears. We can help them feel more comfortable, but still public speaking is a skill. The ability to stand and to be grounded, the ability to project the voice. We can make the opera singer feel very comfortable on stage, but her ability to consistently land on the right notes at the right time, that comes down to her technique and another person as well. So this is a great opportunity to really begin to practice this stuff, to begin to even workshop what your phone script would be, how you begin to interact with your clients. And you've got 100 people in the room at a networking event. Go talk to them all. So again, my challenge to you, I want to hear your action. We've actually got the Teleseminar coming up 1 week from today. I'd love to see you take action between now and the talk, or at best 2 weeks from now. The upcoming talk, the upcoming Teleseminar, Wednesday, April 30th, 2014, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, again, there will be a replay of that. The website to access to get that information, budurl.com/hypnotismsuccess04. Again, my name is Jason Linett. Thank you all so much for all the feedback, for all the comments, for all the questions so far, and especially all the action I've seen you all taking. That's what really is keeping me going with this. You know, it's fun to set up this in the office, invite a few students in to come watch the videos taped live. But again, it's your interaction, not to slight you all here. It's your interactions that are continuing on. The people who've been going back and watching some of the videos before. Put this information into use, advance the story of our profession, really help us all grow. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you on that call.